Hi YouTubers, thought I'd do a little comparison here between the different Canadian Pacifics that I own. Boy, there are a lot of them and a lot of differences. This is a 3000 and it's more typical of many of them that you'll see. It's got the straight handrail, single sand dome painted black, single stack painted black with a hole with a red inserted piece of plastic so that the headlight will glow through it and look like fire. It's got the external running lights. It also has no crosshead to support the side rod. Side rod goes directly into the frame, which was most common with the Marx trains. Turn around to the front and you'll see there's a yellowish gold decal up here, which is the only one of mine that has it. They painted the chrome cow catcher black. Mine has quite a few scratches in it. And it came with the correct Canadian Pacific tender, which is the maroon and gold nameplate. I believe there's also one that comes in a light blue and a gold nameplate. Don't really like the look at that. And that also has a light blue stripe on the side of the train. What I forgot to show is it's got a little Canadian Pacific decal there in the back. This is my 3000 with the chrome cab, one of my favorites, and it's got a crosshead to support the side rod. It's got a chrome sand dome, chrome stack, has the hole in the red plastic insert for the to make it look like there's a fire down in the boiler. Once again, straight handrail, and it has no decal over the headlight, and it has the chrome cow catcher. I really like the chrome in the back. I think it's a pretty sharp looking train. And this is kind of an unusual one. This is a 391. It was made from 1938 to 1942. I should have mentioned on the first two trains they were 242 wheel arrangement. This is also a 242. And you'll see a large round sand dome, two of them. Second one has a sand tube that goes down, and on a real steamer it would have allowed the engineer to release sand in front of the front wheel in slippery circumstances, particularly when he was starting out at the yard and he had quite a few cars loaded on ice going up hills. That's how the steamers, they still use this on the diesels, that's how they get their traction. Another difference is this has a bell. This has a taller chrome stack. It does not have the plastic insert. One of the major differences is it's got cooling tubes on the side. Because of the cooling tubes, they had to run the handrail up high and then down and then attach it to the cow catcher. One of the interesting things is I believe this was done by the factory. On most of the Marx trains, the taps would come through just bare metal or a different color, and these have actually been colored, and they seem to have been done at the factory. Doesn't look like a amateur job to me. Now the front is quite interesting because I'm used to seeing the CPs with the running lights on the outside here on both sides over the headlight. This has these running lights. You can see it's moving around a little bit from where it's just attached with tabs on the inside. This has got running lights on the front of the boiler, and they have these large sort of rough metal. They're not really that smooth bezels to hold the green plastic that the light shines through. And of course the light is behind here, and it shines through here, here, and it also shines. It's got a number plate on the front, and it also shines through the number plate. And of course we've got our chrome cow catcher. This is really a looker. This is a nice looking train. And the odd thing was, you never know what's going to come from the factory, and or when you're dealing with these secondhand. But I believe this may be the original caboose. It's got the automatic coupler, and it's a New York Central. Marx didn't make a lot of Canadian Pacific, caboose, tender. Marx didn't make a lot of Canadian Pacific tenders. And so usually when you got one, it had a New York Central tender. Almost everything you bought from Marx had a New York Central tender. And my fourth and final Canadian Pacific locomotive is my newest. Back in the 90s, a fellow and his wife bought the rights to reproduce Marx trains, and they bought some of the dies. And this was made in 1995. They did a much nicer job on the Canadian Pacific logo. And it says 3003 on the side, which is kind of odd, and I'll show you why later. Once again, it's got the cooling tubes. It's got the two large round chrome sand domes. It's got the tall chrome smokestack with no plastic insert. The bell. They have run the handrail over the top of the cooling tubes like they did in the train I just showed you, but for some reason they painted the handrail. There are holes drilled for the cooling tubes. They neglected to install them. This is a 040, and the reason I bought this, it came with a set, and the reason I bought it is I had a very small house and a small Christmas tree and a little 027 circle that went around the tree, and I thought, I want a Marx engine, but I want something that'll go around that circle. I want something really quiet because of the small room. And this has a can motor in it. And I do not know if the can motor came from the U.S. This engine was made in the U.S., however. They also added a weight back here for, I assume, traction. And of course it's got the crosshead for the side rod. Sharp looking engine. They also make these in 242s, which is more common. Now we'll look at it from the front. And why I said that the 3003 on the side seemed odd is because it's got 8353 on the front and two tiny bezels for running lights. And they're also green like most of the Marx running lights. But the light will also show through the number up here, number plate. Now, something I hadn't noticed before and just discovered when I was looking at these is this is the tender that came with the newer 3003, or if you want to call it an 8353 from 1995. And it's not your typical Canadian Pacific style tender. It's closer to this one, this New York Central. And they also drilled a hole here for a spotlight. This one obviously doesn't have the spotlight. And it's got the four-wheel trucks. Really corners nice, as does the rest of the passenger train. And this is something odd. This was the caboose that came with my work train, and I thought maybe it was a mistake, and as it turns out it wasn't. Because of the red and white litho down here, these usually cost a little extra, and for some reason Marx made that a set. They also put red and white litho frame spotlight car. So found that a bit unusual, but of course later I found out that Marx never made Canadian Pacific cabooses. You always got a New York Central unless it was the passenger train. The older tin plate passenger trains made by Louis Marx and in good condition will cost up to $1,000 now, so that's why I have the new one. It cost about a third of that, and it's a nice looking train. So I'm going to show the two cabooses from Marx Ameritrain. Although with this camera they tend to look a little pink, but it is a pinkish red, not quite as red as the old Marx color. And they really did a nice job with the beaver up on top of Canadian Pacific for the logo. This is the 8-wheel caboose, 7667. And this is the 4-wheel caboose. It's also a 7667. So once in a while these show up on eBay, and I managed to get two of them when the economy was down and things were cheap. So I hope this gives you a little more understanding on Marx Canadian Pacifics. I'll actually line them all up and you can look at the front of them. You can see how different they are. They also call them Marlines. They use the same bodies, and Marx called them Marline trains, but they were not Canadian Pacifics. They were just the same bodies. So, hope you enjoyed this, and maybe it'll give you, next time you're at a train show and you're looking around for Canadian Pacifics or Marx trains, it'll let you know some of the differences, and you can go, oh wow, I don't have that one yet, and that looks really good, and that's kind of cool. And you can buy it or not. It's your choice. Okay, Merry Christmas, everybody. Bye.